"I'd do more than that," says Jack, "for the honor, if there was no love at all in the matter." And the young lady held up her saucer before her face. Well, the squire kept riding about till he was tired, and no sign of Jack. He was thinking of going home at last, when what should he see but one of his servants running from the house as if he was mad. "Oh master, master," says he, as far as he could be heard, "fly home if you wish to see the poor mistress alive. I'm running for the surgeon. She fell down 2 flights of stairs, and her neck, or her hips, or both her arms are broke, and she's speechless, and it's a mercy if you find the breath in her. Fly as fast as the beast will carry you, but hadn't you better take the horse? It's 1.5 miles to the surgeon's." "Oh, anything you like, master." "Oh, voila, Mistress Lena, that I should ever see the day! And your pretty body disfigured as it is. Here, stop your noise, and be off like wildfire. Oh, my darling, isn't this a trial?" He tore home like a fury, and wanted to see no stir outside, and when he flew into the hall, and from there to the parlor, his wife and daughter that were sewing at the table screeched out at the rush he made, and the wild look that was on his face. "Oh, my darling," said he, when he could speak, "how's this? Are you hurt? Did you fall down the stairs? What happened at all? Tell me." "Why, nothing at all happened, thank God, since you rode out." "Where did you leave the horse?" "Well, no one could describe the state he was in for about 1/4 hour, between joy for his wife and anger with Jack, and sorrows for being tricked. He saw the beast coming up the avenue, and a little gorsoon in the saddle with his feet in the stirrup leathers. The servant didn't make his appearance for a week, but what did he care with Jack's 10 golden guineas in his pocket? Jack didn't show his nose till next morning, and it was a queer reception he met. "That was all foul play you gave," says the squire. "I'll never forgive you for the shock you gave me, but then I'm so happy ever since, that I think I'll give you only one trial more. If you will take away the sheet from under my wife and myself tonight, the marriage may take place tomorrow." "We'll try," says Jack, "but if you keep my bride from me any longer, I'll steal her away if she was minded by fiery dragons." When the squire and his wife were in bed, and the moon shining in through the window, he saw a head rising over the sill to have a peep, and then bobbing down again. "That's Jack," says the squire. "I'll astonish him a bit," says the squire, pointing a gun at the lower pane. "Oh Lord, my dear," says the wife, "sure, you wouldn't shoot the brave fellow?" "Indeed, and I wouldn't for a kingdom. There's nothing but powder in it." Up went the head, bang went the gun, down dropped the body, and a great souse was heard on the gravel walk. "Oh, Lord," says the lady, "poor Jack is killed or disabled for life." "I hope not," says the squire, and down the stairs he ran. He never minded to shut the door, but opened the gate and ran into the garden. His wife heard his voice at the room door, before he could be under the window and back, as she thought. Wife, says he from the door, the sheet, he's not killed, I hope, but he is bleeding like a pig. I must wipe it away as well as I can, and get someone to carry him with me." She pulled it off the bed, and threw it to him. Down he ran like lightning, and he had hardly time to be in the garden, when he was back, and this time he came back in his shirt, as he went out. "High hanging to you, Jack," says he, "for an errant rogue." "Errant rogue?" says she. "Isn't the poor fellow all cut and bruised? I didn't much care if he was." "What do you think was bobbing up and down at the window, and sauced down so heavy on the walk? A man's clothes stuffed with straw, and a couple of stones." "And what did you want with the sheet just now? To wipe his blood if he was only a man of strength?"